All right, so let's talk a little bit about how Google maintains its position as the dominant search engine. So remember, we've talked a lot about page speed. Well, this has been something that Google made important very early on. They began with search, and it became a fast service early on because of their investment in infrastructure. So all of this focus on page speed gave them a chance to iterate faster. So having more search data coming in meant they could use machine learning to iterate and change the algorithm even faster. It typically takes about zero point 0.06 to 0.12 seconds for Google to return a search. That's extremely fast. If you go back and look at some of the competitors and how their page speed was performing at the time that Google came on the scene, it was a massive difference. It was a few seconds. And so even though that might have felt fast at the time, or we might be thinking about this like, oh, wow, people can never be satisfied. We have the world's information at our fingertips. Well, we're far enough along now with seeing how fast companies can come and go. We know that it's not wise to underestimate the value of these types of metrics. Google has about 90% of the search market right now internationally, and about 70 to 90% in the US, depending on what year you're looking at. And it's been sort of a one-way street because of page speed and how fast Google has stayed the number one choice for people doing searches. Another big factor has been the local advantage. Google got really good early on at realizing that they were a primary source of information about local businesses. So their use of Google Maps and their integration of Google Maps with their search services, and it really came to a head with Google My Business, or the Google Business Profile. This became a real strategic advantage, especially with mobile phones becoming smartphones. The fact that Microsoft and Yahoo and these other search platforms didn't have that same level of integration really changed how people thought of search as they were going into the mobile phone experience. So as the internet moved from desktop to mobile, Google was right there, right at the right time. And they had licensed all of that map information and turned that into a real strong capability for creating a data set of businesses. And now it's almost to the point that Google is more authoritative than companies themselves on what they offer. For example, with local restaurants, if you get on and you want to see, okay, what do they have on the menu? You're going to get more information and pictures from Google of different dishes. And those things might not even be offered anymore at that local restaurant. But Google just knows that that information is absorbed and consumed so much more heavily than actual old crappy PDFs of printed menus, that users prefer that experience. It's a faster way to get a sense of, okay, what kind of food do they have? How good does it look? And so Google is becoming so much more of a trusted source than the low quality and the low level of effort that companies put out to produce their own material, that it's a real threat to companies owning and controlling their own brand voice, because they don't get to express themselves in a way that can be selected and evaluated on its own merit. Instead, users, the crowd, is managing the marketing of a lot of local restaurants. But this is the sort of thing that gave Google a significant advantage and sort of locked it in as the go-to search appliance for mobile devices. Even though Apple and others tried not to let that be the case, Google is absolutely dominant for searches for local services, not just restaurants, but anything local. Next up is we call it the Google added value advantage. Google never stops trying to add value for users. Some initiatives work better than others. Who remembers Google's attempt at a social network? It just never took off. There are lots of things that don't happen, but other tools do, like Google News. So when you have a search results page that includes not just organic listings, but these other types of listings, sometimes those can be a better experience than just an organic search result. So Google has used those other formats, those other things to creep in to the search results page and make that a bigger part of the results that are returned. A lot of those results that are returned come from other efforts at Google, not just their original search capability. They come from either Google Maps or Google News or Google Shopping. All of those ancillary services to organic search listings have become in many cases, more than half of the organic search results page. And it's because they offer and meet the needs of the users better than organic search listings in the traditional sense. And so this value add, it's a major part of Google's play to be the go-to search solution. Another big part of Google's history is mobile first. They focused on page speed, on their own page speed early on, and it was such a big hit that they decided to enforce it on the rest of the world. And they did this by being the dominant player in search and choosing websites that served out a faster mobile experience higher than websites that serve out a slow experience for mobile users. But they've gone one step further. Now, organic listings for both desktop users and mobile users are impacted by how well the mobile experience is served out by website publishers, meaning like your company website, your organization, your blog, whatever you have on the internet that you control and maintain. It's judged based on the experience for mobile users even more than the desktop experience, even if the person doing the search that you want to reach is doing that search on a desktop computer or a laptop. And so this type of mobile first indexing is, in a sense, enforcing page speed as one of the #1 metrics for SEO, but also just one of the more competitive advantage categories for thinking about your internet marketing and your publishing of your website. All right, so all this comes at a cost. How did Google pay for this? Well, the answer is monetizing search. One of the most important things that Google ever did for itself was to create a simple user interface for organizations and individuals and companies in particular to launch search campaigns. When I was running search decades ago for an employer of mine, Yahoo purchased the company Overture for $1.6 billion. This was a huge move in the market for Yahoo. But what they did not do is they did not simplify the interface for buying and launching ad campaigns. Now, today, Google's ad interface is about as complicated or more complicated than Overture's ad interface at that time. But Google back then started with something that was so easy to do that they became the dominant player for companies that wanted to advertise in search engines. So Overture fell by the wayside. Yahoo never really caught the fire that Google had with selling ads because Google simplified it down to a wizard. Start your ad campaign, click here to get started. And that was way better than starting with a keyword research tool, which was what Overture was at that time. It was essentially a keyword research tool, and it was very much written by programmers for programmers. And Google came in with something that was more like a search appliance. It was more like just a wizard, a box to start your journey. And that made all the difference. All right, hope this has been helpful, and we'll see you on the next one.